the Dukes weren't hazardous. She's only 17, made us curious. It was a carefree time. How about we jump back and rewind? We were living on Winger and a prayer, just garbage pail kids with mullets and big hair. Let's open up another pack. Gen X wants their future back. Break out the denim jackets and faded band patches. Share memories, Polaroid captured. It's the Gen X marks, the spot portraits.
From the Wherever I May Roam studio, it is Gen X Marks the Spot podcast. I'm your host, Joe Augustine. If you grew up in the 80s and you were laying on a beanbag with your orange Dodge Charger Matchbox car and you only had 3 channels to choose from and the one that you were watching was CBS on a Friday night, I think you know what show I'm talking about. Those good old boys from Hazzard County, Bo and Luke, the Dukes of Hazzard. And today, January 26th, we are celebrating the 47th anniversary of the very first time those Duke boys hit our screens back in 1979. Friday nights at 8 p.m. on CBS became sacred in the households across America. Who didn't want to do a hood slide across the General Lee's hood? Or, better yet, watching Daisy strut her way through Hazzard County in those shorts. And of course, there was Boss Hog scheming and Roscoe chasing. Oh, I love it, I love it. Yeah, did you like that? Then who could forget Enos, Cletus, Uncle Jesse and his moonshine, and Cooter? Or maybe your favorite was a good old balladeer, Waylon Jennings. I don't know about you, but for me, and maybe a lot of us, those Friday nights weren't about going out. They were about staying in, planted on that beanbag or even a couch, watching them Duke boys outrun the law and outsmart Boss Hog. Just week after week. No streaming, no binge watching, just one episode, one night, and you had to wait 7 days to see what happened next. And we're still talking about the show 47 years later. Can you believe the Dukes pulled in 20 million viewers a week at its peak? The show ran from 1979 through 1985. And all of this brings me to today's guest, Jon Holland. He is a Dukes of Hazzard historian, author of 2 books about the Dukes, and CEO and president of the Dukes of Hazzard Museum in Williamsburg, Virginia. How about we just keep it between the ditches for now and jump right into my interview with Jon Holland. Tell me a little bit about how you got interested in the Dukes of Hazzard, how you became the Dukes of Hazzard historian. How you became the Dukes of Hazzard historian.
You know, of course, the early 80s, I mean, the show was at its height, #1. And of course, you know, I was watching it then as a child. And really how it got big again, really with all of us 70s babies, was in 1996, TNN started re-showing the Dukes of Hazzard, their old reruns. It got really popular really fast to the point they were showing them at 4 and 7 p.m. every day. And that's what started the 1997 reunion to come back, because it was just blowing up on TNN. In 2005, I believe, that's when CMT picked up the Dukes, and I was asked to do an interview with, I think it was called the Dukes of Hazzard CMT Inside to Fame, I believe it was. And based on my knowledge and everything I had, which they didn't show nearly any of that because it would just kind of lost the regular viewer to watch a show like that. But they actually named me Dukes historian, and I said, wow, that's pretty cool. I think I'll run with that. So I've published 2 books. The first book was Roads Back to Early Hazzard, which only focuses on the first 5 episodes of the show, because only the first 5 episodes was shot in Georgia before they picked up and moved to California to film, obviously, the rest of the season. And then in 2010, I published a Moonrunner's Tale, How the Dukes Were Born, because a lot of people don't realize Moonrunners was this movie that came out in 1975, and it basically was the start of the Dukes of Hazzard. Really all this is very it interests me. It's very intriguing to know that all this was after a real family by the last name of Russian from Monroe, North Carolina. So that's basically what that movie was based on. And then 7 years later, when the Incredible Hulk was going off the air, they needed a fill-in show. And Phil Mendeca from CBS got a hold of Guy Waldron, who had created and wrote Moonrunners, and asked him could he turn it into a comedy series. So that's how that all came about. So it's pretty interesting stuff to know. It's all about a real, true life family from Monroe, North Carolina.
Wow. I didn't know it was based on a true story. I knew it did come from Moonrunners with the Dukes of Hazzard.
I mean, back in those days, Atlanta, Georgia really as a whole was basically the number 2 filming area besides California. I mean, I can't even name all the movies that were shot down there in the 70s and early 80s. I mean, it's just tons of them.
The other show that was filmed in Covington, In the Heat of the Night.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I didn't even realize that.
Well, believe it or not, that has a little bit of Duke's involvement with that too. I can't remember where in Louisiana the first season was shot. I just looked it up and I've forgotten it. They left that little town in Louisiana, and they were looking at 3 other places, and one of them was in Covington. And actually the family Brewer was their last name, and they actually owned a hotel. They had their house, actually, the Brewers' house, was actually filmed in the 4th episode of Dukes of Hazzard while I was in Georgia. That was used as the repo house, all the fans call it, where they were making where they had to go. They were making counterfeit money, and they had to repo a Rolls Royce that was out at the property. So yeah, the Brewer family actually owned a hotel, and this is of course 10 years later, because Dukes was in 78 down there, and this was in 87, so 9 years later. OBT Brewer, who was he was the gentleman he that owned the property in the hotel. He says, I tell you what, he said, if you bring the revenue and everything to Covington, he said, the cast and crew can stay the whole time at my hotel scot-free on my dime, for bringing it here. So it didn't take them long to pick that. So that's kind of a little bit like, it'd be like a family reunion where it's not direct blood kin, but it's, marriage into it. So yeah, those people that got basically in the heat of the night shot there in Covington were involved with Dukes as well. So yeah.
You do know your stuff.
I know a little bit to be dangerous, but that's about it. I tell everybody, nobody can know it all. We constantly learn day by day. Everybody as a society, I hope we should. But Lord, from 2005 to 2007, I was going about every 5 to 6 weeks doing research and everything. I actually started doing the research for my first book in 99 and finally got it finished in 06 and got it published out in 07. So yeah, we went to Covington a whole lot, Conyers, Covington, and Social Circle, because that's where the 3 main places were shot, and then Atlanta being the 4th for Dukes for those first 5 episodes. When I did that, GPS it was getting ready to come out. So, I mean, you had to follow it. But we've had thousands of people do it, start at the hotel where they actually stayed off of I-20 and follow it. I've got it broken up into 3 different segments. But yeah, you just had to set your tripper in the car and go abouts and read along. And yeah, I never had anybody complain that got lost or anything. So hoping to do a second edition to that book one day when I get some free time. So,
well, the one spot I would want to go to is where they had in the opening credits ending jump with the General Lee over Roscoe's car. Now, I know that was at a university's
Yeah, that's
entrance.
Oxford. Yeah, Oxford Emory University. Yep. That's right there, right outside of Covington.
I was talking to Corey Eubanks about a month ago. He informed me that he actually replicated that jump.
Yeah, he did. It was it was on MTV. They were doing that. And I can't remember what that was for because that's been 20 plus years ago. But I think he did that in '05. I've got pictures of that. But because I remember the flag being a big controversy thing then, but they actually left it on the car to do that MTV jump. So yeah, but yeah, he's right. He did do that.
And now he got his own stunt clinic.
Yeah, I think he's doing well with that too, from
Yeah,
what I see on
absolutely.
Facebook.
Now, you were mentioning the controversy with the flag. And if you don't
hmm
mind me asking, what are your views on the flag with the generally? I'm not going to go so much back as to what it originally represented or people think it represented.
Yeah, well, I'm in actually Sons of Confederate Veterans, so yeah, I could explain all that too. But I mean, it was never done for anything racist or anything. I mean, it wasn't during the Civil War either. I mean, a lot of people don't even realize that the whole war broke out over a tax tariff. That's all it was. And then other issues followed later on as the war went on. But as far as it being on the car, it was just a good old boy thing. A lot of guys in the South used to actually paint flags on the trunk lids of their car. And I think they were considering that. Guy Waldron was considering that, and they thought, no, it would look a whole lot better being on the very tip top of the roof. It would make just a better shot, better angles, for the camera while they were filming. So, I mean, that's really kind of how all that got into play, because Guy Waldron, the creator of the show, he's from Hazzard, Kentucky with one Z, not two Z's.
Are you
So that's why,
serious?
yeah, so that's how that came to be named like that.
I never knew that because I knew there was a Hazard, Kentucky. If I remember correctly, there was like a gathering. I know Sorrel Book, who played Boss Hogg, was in Hazard, Kentucky.
Sorrel was there, and James Best and Catherine Bach and Rick Hurst. And I think that was it. They did, oh my gosh, it was 40,000 people there then, which back in 1980, that was just an insane crowd. I can't remember what charity that was for, but that's, again, when Dukes was at its height, from season 2 to 3. So they were number one then. And yeah, but you can pull up all kinds of YouTube videos and everything from that parade they went through the town of Hazard and everything. So yeah.
And I'm not speaking for everyone, but many of my guy friends and some of my girlfriends, and I don't mean them like we dated, but you know what I mean, that was just what we did on Friday nights. We were home watching the Dukes of Hazzard, and when they weren't on, we were at the skating rink. That was it. Dukes of Hazzard or skating rink back in the 80s. That was completely it.
Yeah, I think I had heard Guy Waldron say, or someone at one of the CBS executives say, that down in Alabama, they had to switch the Friday night football games to Saturday because no one was showing up to the football games. Everybody was at home watching Dukes of Hazzard. So I mean, that shows you how, as a society, and I'm kind of an oldie and goodie. It's kind of sad, all the technology we have now, that you're not drawn together like that as a family or just friends, where you have to see it then, because if you miss it, that's it. It's no more YouTubing, or I'll just pull it off of the record or on demand or what have you. I mean, it's just so many different avenues now of technology just to not be there. I mean, we only had 3 channels, for Christ's sake, back then, and how many do we have now? Thousands.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, but that just really shows you the impact of what this show, what it brought to the table in everybody's lives every Friday night.
You can correct me if I'm wrong. Out of all those thousands of channels that are out there, I don't know one that's showing the Dukes of Hazzard right now.
They won't. No one. I tell everybody, and I'll be the first to apologize if I'm wrong, but I can't see any network or any ownership of a television network because of the flack they would catch from people today. And of course, knocking what they don't know. They need to really learn history, but that show will never be showed again on television, only because of the flag issue. And it's really a shame, because any other show that actually has racist words in it is shown. And this show has nothing like that at all. It's no controversy of race, very little bad language. That was only in the first 5 episodes. Like I said, well, no, I shouldn't say that. It was usually the first season, I should say, had a few bad words, and they weren't bad at all. It's normal language of today. That's how the show was then a 9 o'clock show, got moved to an 8 o'clock show. That's when Falcon Crest came on at 10, so it moved everything forward. So, and that's when CBS realized they were attracting young viewers, because the first season definitely is not really too younger view, especially the first 5 episodes is not too child friendly, I would say. But the CBS realized they were attracting younger viewers with the car, and then the dog comes in later on Flash, because that wasn't on until I think the end of the second season, I believe.
Yeah, and I could tell, as they transitioned, the one character for me that had the most change was James Best, Roscoe P. Coltrane. He went from this more rough, gruff, still a little aloof sheriff to just aloof.
One could say that. I've never heard that in the 30 years I've been doing this. I've never heard that. I've always said, and I've always heard Ben say, that Cooter changed the most in that show, because in the first episode, he's basically living in a car in a junkyard, basically in a garage area. And then as the show progresses to California, he gets a big, 2-story garage with a living area above it that he would always rent out. And then by the 3rd season, he's with the Boy Scouts in the Christmas episode. And Lord, by the first reunion that takes place with the television series, just like 12, 13 years later, he's already in Congress, was state senator, which that happened in real life. So really, the character of Cooter, I would say, evolved more so than any of them. I mean, James, I would agree with that too, because I've even heard James say, he even shot somebody. He's sitting in the foot, but he actually holds his knee. No one's ever been able to figure that out. The guy he shoots holds his knee, but he says, my toe, you shot my toe. So no one has ever been able to figure that out. But regardless of how or what, he did shoot somebody in those early episodes. And then later on, like you said, he didn't. So he was definitely more rough around the neck in those early episodes as it got on later on.
Yeah, I was just kind of looking at, from those first couple of episodes that were in Covington, even though he was corrupt per se, he didn't come off that way. He was more of a lovable character.
Yeah, I could see that.
Now, you talked about meeting some of the characters. Is there more of a closer relationship you have with one or more of the cast members than the others?
No, not really. I've always been a big a crew person more than a cast person per se, just because the crew, they happen to know a lot more juicier stories, meaning juicy as, how things got to be, why so many cars were used, or why they flipped this from that. Just you get a lot of inside behind the scenes stories and stuff that, the cast was there just to do a job, but then the crew's actually performing and making the job happen. So those types of stories have always interested me more so than the cast. I mean, the cast has interesting stories, but like I said, the guys actually putting it all together and making it come to home plate is always just really grabbed me where it is, or where it tickles. So yeah, that's usually what would do it for me. I was very close with all the body and crew guys in Georgia, obviously from writing the first book in Georgia. I've known a lot of stunt guys too from California that I've been pretty close with, but probably the picture car coordinator I was the closest with Don Schishler. He actually forwarded my book, and he was a heck of a guy. He did so much stuff I couldn't name it, but I mean he was involved with Smoking the Bandit. I mean, he told me when those they had 3 cars sent from Pontiac, and Pontiac wanted them back in any shape, way, or form, and he had to send them back. But it amused me that they had to hide them because that was a brand new body style that year, and they couldn't let the public see it yet. So just
Oh,
hearing how
wow.
the stories, how they had to hide those cars, and even stuff with Dukes. So I mean, it's just they I mean, I don't know. That just really grabs me. So yeah, that's always been my interest with crew.
Nice. I never looked at it that way.
Yeah, they sometimes they'll have call sheets and pictures, and then I love pictures. I have tons of pictures here at the museum, and a picture tells a story. I've actually been able to distinguish what happened in a certain episode or with a certain car, even though someone that lived it and was standing there says different. A picture can really talk and prove something. It's kind of like numbers, but yeah, the pictures really they really intrigue me a lot. I love studying and looking at pictures, and it seems like no matter how much I look at them, you always find something else later on that you didn't see. You're like, how did I never see this? I've looked at this photo 1,000 times and have just figured, or someone comes here and points something out, and I'm like, wow, I totally missed that. So, but yeah, pictures really, that's really a neat piece of history that that we sometimes take for granted. We've got our phones and we just snap them left and right. So,
Exactly.
but yeah.
And speaking of pieces of history, there's no more Duke's Farm, and the Boar's Nest is kind of just what, a church now, I believe.
Yeah, churches bought it and renovated that inside. When I first found that in 98 or 99, the Covington race team actually owned it and had painted the building red. There's very few gray cinder blocks left right by the front door area. They winded up just dissolving, and a local church that was trying to get up on their feet bought it. So I mean, I commend them. There's a big, huge Amazon, gosh, I guess you would call it hub that is being built right behind them. But my hand's off to them. They've put up with all the Dukes fanatics that come there and hang around and take pictures, and I'm sure bug them. But the farmhouse, that got dismantled in 2011. That was a shame. I'm not going to get all into that because it's a lot to get into, but basically a couple had bought it in 88 or 89 and was starting to renovate it, and they found out that it had asbestos shingling on it. So with the kitchen torn down and the roof line left open, that left all the weather to pour inside of the main home, because the original main home, everyone around in the local area says that it was a pre-Civil War, but it was basically a log cabin with like a hallway and 2 rooms on each, or 1 room on each side. So it was just a 2-room log cabin that the Cox family later on had added on a kitchen and then the boys and girls room with a front porch across the front. Because I'd always wondered when I'd watch Dukes, I'm like, this farmhouse is so oddly shaped. So when I met Bud Cox, who was, I don't know, one of 7 or 8 of the Cox kids, he finally put that question I had to rest, because it just seemed so odd to have a porch in the middle and 2 little side rooms, one to the left and one to the right, just kind of hanging off the house. But that's what his dad did to improvise what they had to, do back in the Great Depression. And a little story with that to show you just how we take stuff for granted. They would actually stand there in the living room, which is actually where the 4th episode was shot, in Repo Men. That goes back to the Repo House we were talking about earlier. He said it didn't matter how bad or how warm or good you got your tail warmed, but time you ran outside to go to your room that had no heat in it, it was already bone chilling that quick. So that just shows us the life of luxury we have today with, heat and electric blankets and everything. You know, we just kind of take for granted because I've never forgotten that story. He told me that. So
It's kind of funny. Just on Saturday, I was having a similar conversation, but it had nothing to do with the Dukes of Hazzard. But we were just reminiscing about old times, and I grew up on a farm.
hmm
And back in the 70s, my grandparents' home on the farm did not have a bathroom. It had an outhouse. And I
Yep.
still remember going to the outhouse, and the outhouse was right next to their pig pen. So you can imagine what that was like.
You didn't know the difference where you were.
No, no, you did not. You did not. And I don't believe it was until, or I should say, I do believe it wasn't until 79 they actually got a bathroom and a shower, stand-up shower put in.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I
all the homes that we grew up in, and then my, you know, yeah, they all had one bathroom, so you had to wait. I mean, could you imagine how society would be today with one bathroom? We have five, and it's not enough.
oh well, we got one, and I still tell my boys, get out the back porch. You're good. No neighbors
Yeah.
around. But yeah,
Yes,
man.
there's nothing wrong with that.
No, no, nothing at all. But the for me, and I'll give you my perspective because we're kind of reminiscent now. For me, anytime the Dukes of Hazzard comes on, it literally takes me back to my childhood. There are not a lot of shows that can do that. Now, don't get me wrong, I love many shows and many movies from the 80s. Knight Rider, A-Team, Riptide, you name those shows, I loved them. But they just don't give me that sense of home, that sense of nostalgia like the Dukes of Hazzard does.
No, it doesn't. Friday night, because I was pretty young when the show first came on. I used to call it Luke Duke night because it just rhymed. So, but yeah, yeah, just 8 o'clock Friday night. You had to be there.
Well, when the show ended, the last season of the Dukes, they never got their proper send off.
No, not really. And you know, it's a funny thing too, because the cast knew that was pretty much going to be the last one because I believe John Schneider directed that one. Yeah, I mean I've heard him say before that they knew that was going to be. They were pretty sure that was it. So yeah, they didn't really get their send off, but I mean it didn't leave you hanging either at the same time. Like
Right.
you know, so. Yeah, it's a shame that happened the way it did, but it wasn't. All in all, it wasn't bad because, like I said, they had two reunion movies later on.
For me, the actual star of the show was the General Lee. And during the Coy and Vance time, I think they had some of their best stunt work with the car.
Well, yeah, they did because they knew basically they were trying to replace something that was irreplaceable. So I think they were trying to hide it by doing more stunts and everything. But, you know, since you brought that up, I've often heard John Schneider say that, you know, the reason the show's ratings went down is because we left. It wasn't because of the General Lee or what, it's because we left. And that's a 50-50 question there for me because, yes, the ratings did drop. And, yes, they did leave. But before they left, the General Lee received more fan mail than they did, than any actor. I was just reading it the other night, and I forgot. I think it was over 60,000 pieces of fan mail in 1 year. I was reading it out of a General Lee Enterprise pamphlet I've got here at the museum. And Warner Brothers actually had to make this postcard. It's a famous jump where they jump in Lake Sherwood over the creek. And they were like, you know, it's not a cat, it's not a human, so how can we get them something besides just a picture? It has to be autographed. I don't know who thought of it, but it was pretty awesome and smart. They took basically a tire tread from like the left corner, kind of slightly across the bottom half of the jump at the bottom of it, and it says an official autograph of the General Lee, and it's a tire mark, like a little bit at the bottom from left to right corner. And that's what you got back in the mail when you sent Warner Brothers a letter about, dear General Lee, you are my favorite car. You're the fastest car. There's nothing you can't do. So that was pretty neat that someone thought of that to do a tire mark as an autograph, because that pretty much is an autograph of a car. So that's always, that's kind of a half question. Yeah, they got more fan mail than you did, so they kind of were the star of the show. But when Tom and John left, the ratings definitely dropped. So yeah, how do you answer that one?
You can't. Here's where I think the show kind of went south, or jumped the shark, like they would say with Happy Days, is when they started using the miniatures.
It was already going down south. It went down south definitely when Coin Vance came, and it never got back. It was still a top 20 show, but it wasn't in the top 5. And back in those days, because again, only 3 channels, if you weren't a top 5 show, you weren't going to make it. If you're a top 20 show today, you'll never be canceled. That's how much society and just the business and life has changed. But I mean, yeah, the ratings they were still getting when they went off the air, most shows today would kill to have ratings like that. But back then, again, 3 shows, you're not going to make it. You're not 5 or higher. That's it. So off they went. But I mean, it's like Tom had once said too, Tom Wopat, who played Luke, the writers, they were coming from like Dobie Gillis and, Gilligan's Island. So some of the writing was, I guess one could say, starting to suffer. It was kind of corny. But yeah, it like I said, it never bounced back when Coin Vance came on. And I kind of feel bad for those guys, because they really didn't even have a chance when they came on the set. I had heard they had been basically put in rooms and said, walk like this guy, stand like this, jump like this. I mean, if they'd have just let them wear their regular, whatever color shirt they had on that day, and just let them be themselves, I think it'd have been better off than switching the blonde to the dark haired one, and the blue shirt to the blonde hair. When it wasn't, I don't know why they did that, but I think it'd have been better off if they'd have just let them be themselves instead of trying to replace something that wasn't there.
Right. And what you're saying right there is kind of like how it was for me back in the day with hair metal bands. They had to have a replacement guitarist or drummer that
You're right.
Whoever.
Or a drummer that had left.
Right, exactly. So, but saying what you were talking about with the script writing, there is one episode that I wish never ever existed, and I probably will.
And I bet I know which one it is.
Oh, I know, and I will never ever watch it in my lifetime. And go, because it's going to be the same one.
Strange Visitor to Hazard.
Oh, you know it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think they did that, honestly, because the ratings had come back when Tom and John came back. But again, the script writing wasn't good. And then, like you said, with the miniatures in the last season, wow, I've heard Paul Baxley say, I remember the first time he says, I saw that. He said, you talk about a punch below the belt. He said, we had done everything to make this show what it was. And it was. All of the stunts and everything, really. I'm going to go back to the Back of Covington days and come back to where we're talking about with Strange Visitor at Hazard. When you read the first script, the biggest and most awesomest thing in there is a reverse 180. That's about it. Back in the 70s, just stuntmen were at war. They had ego problems. And everybody was trying to do the first and the longest and the biggest jump, or just, skiing cars or what have you. I can't even name all the movies, like Vanishing Point, The Car, Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, Smoking the Bandit with Hal Needham's group. I mean, it's just, I can't even name them all that they were at war with each other. So Dukes comes on. It's a fill-in replacement show for 13 episodes with the Incredible Hulk going off the air. it's not supposed to make it. It's low budget. They've been told that. So Paul sits here and I guess thinks, and he says, you know what? Let's make some records on their dime. And if they like it and respond to it, we'll do it. If they don't, we'll quit it. He said, but either way, we'll make a record or two. So they start throwing cars up in the air, and they responded to it big time. So the first 5 cars that they sent to the first episode, all of them had been trashed but one. And Warner Brothers themselves responded to it like, yes, this is it. This is really cool. So not even knowing yet that the public was going to respond to it the way they did. I mean, I know that's why I love the show. I just wanted to see the car, just like that, like we were talking about with fan mail. And so, yeah, that was really kind of all the magic of Paul Baxley, who was the stunt coordinator and the director, and his crew. He had his son with him, Craig, and his nephew, Gary. And I've actually got the first police car that was jumped in the very first episode that Craig Baxley, or I'm sorry, Gary Baxley had jumped. Yeah, Gary Baxley was 18. He had never jumped a car. And they put him in the bigger car, the police car, and his cousin Craig was in the General Lee because that was a little bit smaller car. And so, yeah, but yeah, all that got done by Paul Baxley. So, I mean, if you think about that as a whole and how that show carried on for 6 years and destroyed all those cars that they did, and to see a miniature that had replaced you, it's like a hit below the belt like no other. I don't even know if there's a word for it, but everyone was pretty upset. And I mean, I've never met hardly the best episode of the last season is Happy Birthday General Lee, and I hate that there's still a miniature right at the front of it where they thread the needle through a drain pipe that's hanging. I mean, it's just that's god awful. But everyone loves that episode. But you can imagine how he felt, basically being replaced by, I wouldn't say a 10-cent model, but that's pretty much it. So, and the ratings, they kept on dropping, which they were still high, but they had dropped from, like we said, a top 5 show. So, and then by that suffering and E.T. coming out in 83, which was just a year before that script was actually written, that had done extremely well. You know, we remember that. So I think that's probably why they did what they did. It kind of, I wouldn't say it's a bad episode. It's probably the worst one, like out of all of them, but it leaves your mind to wander.
Yeah.
Is there really, is there really life out there? I'm not a big science person. I don't think it is, but I mean, if it is, I'd be kind of scared, but.
But, and the other thing too, going back to the miniatures, even and I don't know, what age was I? I was 10, 11, back 84, 85. And I was still able to tell those stunts being done by miniatures could not be done in real life. Jumping over the houses or through the signs or, like you said, through the piping. I knew then that was impossible. But you go back a couple seasons earlier, that was real. That was real. I mean, of course, I didn't realize that the General Lee was weighted down and everything, but I could just tell.
Yeah, jumping through signs was real. They jumped through a billboard or two in real stunts. But the one that really got me is jumping over a grain silo. I mean, they were starting to do them so just beyond belief, or jumping on the back of an 18-wheeler and bouncing off of the tractor tires ahead of the 18-wheeler. And I mean, it was just god awful.
Yes, that's where I was going with that. It was, definitely god awful.
They were trying much too hard.
And they failed.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
So let's talk a little bit about the museum.
Well, the museum, that just like everything with Dukes, how everything started out to be an accident. Climbing through the doors was an accident. Having the Dixie horns on it was an accident. Me doing this museum was an accident. It all started just from me wanting to collect a few pieces that I had back then in 1996. Like I said, when TNN came on the air, and I had a Generally then. Of course, that made me, want to have the drive to get one, and I got one. And I said, God, this is pretty cool. They make toys of like my car or what have you. And so I said, I'm gonna collect a few pieces I had. And back in those days, that's a little bit before eBay, so you had to find toy shows to go to. And I didn't remember what all I had no idea. Now I do, but back in those days, I didn't know all the memorabilia that they really had out of it. Some of it wasn't even sold here in the States, so we would have never known. But thanks to technology on that end, we do know. But yeah, you would just go to a toy show, and if you didn't have it or you wanted it or something you did have, you would get it. And just, sometimes you'd go and you'd find nothing. That's just, how the world was back then. You had a good time with whoever you went with, and it's kind of, lame we didn't find anything today, but what have you. So again, all started out me just collecting a few pieces that I wanted. As time went on, I just started collecting a little bit more because I thought this piece was neat, and a little bit more. And then I thought, man, why don't we try to get all of it? or try to. It's impossible, and it still is. I've got like 98.9%. I think I'm missing like 4 or 5 different UK items that are insanely rare just in the United Kingdom, much less, trying to get one here. But yeah, it's a cancer that went out of control, just one thing to the next. And then when I was doing my books, you'd be in the writing mode and, go talk to this guy. He did this and he had a script, and you're like, well, you want to sell it? And they're like, no, sell it. You can have it. Or yeah, I'll sell it to you. It doesn't mean anything to me. So then I started collecting props and Warner Brothers items and on and on. And Don Schischler, I was telling you about earlier, the picture card coordinator, he actually led a few friends of mine. They were probably in their late 20s. I was in my early 20s. I was trying to find stuff out, but I was just still in college, so I didn't have the money. I wasn't ahead in life how they were. So they actually got up and found him, and he took them right to the Lee 1 car, and then Police 1 and 2, and a buddy of mine got the 2 police cars, which I didn't really care about any of them but just number 2, because that one actually still ran. Out of all the 48 cars they used, I was like, how cool would it be to have the only running Georgia car left? And it was the first one you actually see, not the first one jump, but it's the first one that you see as, general public. When you watch the episode, that's the first car you see in the air. So yeah, so just, with writing books and grabbing information and just on, 30 years, here we are. I had people here the other night from Russia, for God's sakes. So, I'm always busy. It's a private tour. It's scheduled by appointment. It can last 15 minutes. It can last 7 hours. It can last 5 or 3 hours like it did the other night. But it's all in what you want to see, how deep you want to go. I really love it when true fans come here because they know what they're looking at versus, I remember that when I was a kid and they come in here and just look around for, 15, 20 minutes and just leave. They do that at any place they go to in life. But yeah, when you really get true fans here, they don't leave. And that's fine because I enjoy sharing the information and everything with them. Like, well, look at this and this is how we know this. So, I had an 8-year-old kid that came in here one time and he knew as much as I did. And that was so much fun showing him around. He was in awe walking around here looking at all these things we had from Warner Brothers because he knew what episode they came from and how in the world did you get it. So, yeah. But, yeah, we're located in Williamsburg, Virginia, and we're on the internet. We're on Facebook. I'm telling you, it'll be worth your trip. You need to come on down here.
Yeah. It's funny you said that because I'm planning on taking my father on a road trip. Me and him may just make a trip down there.
Yeah, do it.
Well, speaking of my dad, and I've told this story multiple times, and when I was 6, maybe, my dad had like a 72, 73 Gremlin. I wanted a General Lee so bad. I got the bright idea because, as I mentioned earlier, we lived on a farm. And of
Hmm.
course, we had Alice Chalmers tractors. So I just went, grabbed some old orange touch up paint. One day he's home from work. I go on the passenger side and I start spray painting his car orange. And
Oh my gosh.
I'd be watching for him when he's ready to leave. I would do like one of those army crawls to get away from him. And he takes it to work. And a couple of his coworkers are like, "Hey, what's up with your car?" He's like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "It's orange. You trying to get a General Lee?" True story. He's like, "What are you talking about?" He goes out there. Literally, he drives home, gives me a good old butt whooping, because you could do that back in the day.
Oh yeah, yep.
And then
I've received a few of them, but you didn't do it again.
no, no. And then he started laughing his ass off because he thought it was funny. My mom never thought it was funny. The thing was, and just to add on to that, whenever I did something I probably shouldn't have done, at some point, it wasn't about the butt whoopings. It was about, we know what makes you tick. You're not watching the Dukes of Hazzard on Friday nights.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, sometimes I wanted to take the butt whooping and still watch the Dukes.
That reminds me of a commercial they really had. Yeah, it was for the first Dukes of Hazzard Racing for Home. Yeah, because Daisy Dukes it out as the second one. So yeah, Dukes of Hazzard Racing for Home game in 2000. They had three different commercials. One of them was a guy that was he goes out of his house. He looks at his station wagon, with the wood grain on the side of it,
Right, right.
and he does like you. He just starts spray painting it orange, and then it advertises the game, and then when they're done with the advertisement, it goes back to that kid. So by the end, the kid's already got the whole car painted orange, and he spray painted O1s on the side just in black. And it's that totally reminded me of that story when you said of that commercial.
Yeah. Maybe they got that idea from John because I gave it to him. You never know.
Gosh, that's pretty funny. I do want to say this because no one gives them credit, and I don't like it. That's how the museum tour starts here. But the real history of the Dukes, like I told you, started from a family in Monroe, North Carolina, named Jerry and Johnny Russian, who were brothers who lived with their Uncle Worley, and their cousin Delane. You seeing how all this fits together?
Mm-hmm.
We just switch it to cousins instead of brothers. But anyway,
Right.
two brothers live with their Uncle Worley. Uncle Worley makes the finest moonshine around. And they kind of they dilly-dallied and everything in Monroe. They did fur trapping. I think they did some sharecropping. But what they mainly liked to do was run whiskey. And kind of a weird thing, Jerry had an act for writing songs when he would actually drive. And he would always take it to this local lawyer named Bob Clark, who helped produce a few of the early Dukes of Hazzards episodes. And he was a local lawyer, so Jerry would take his songs to him to try to get them, published and get a country star to start singing it. And while doing this, Bob Clark had a friend named Guy Waldron, that's the creator of the Dukes. He was actually writing a moonshine script at the time, and it was very dry, and he didn't know how to even write it, how to put it all together. And Bob told him, he says, "Guy, you got to come down here." He said, "There's a 10-year series in this guy's life." He said, "This guy is crazy." He said, "The stuff he does and just the talents he has." He says, you got to come down here." So Guy gets a hold of him and tells him to, write all this stuff down. And Jerry says, "Man, I'm not going to do all that." He said, you just need to come up here and see how we live." So Guy comes up there for a week and sees, how Jerry loads the 76 bags of sugar on his 55 Ford and brings it and mixes up the mesh and lets it all age. And the boar's nest, that was actually, Jerry had a little archery area there in the boar's nest, and had a little jail. They would sell some of their product and everything there. He had furs there he could sell. And so yeah, he came down and saw all this and basically wrote Moonrunners from it. And they were trying to do Moonrunners as the next Thunder Road. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie that Robert Mitchum wrote, and his son James starred in it in '57. It was like the first big moonshine movie that had a lot of stunts and stuff in it for back in those days. And that's what they were trying to do with it. And it was low budget, and it kind of flocked. It was only shown in the rural area, the southern areas, and Jerry Rushing served as a technical advisor on the movie. He did a lot of the stunt driving on the movie with one or two of stunt drivers from United Artists that was working with them, and they actually wanted to take Jerry back to Hollywood with him. They said, man, the way you drive, you can outdo any of us almost, because Jerry Randall was one of the main drivers, and you can see he's a revenue agent, and Jerry's actually playing one of the Hag boys, which that's what the family's after, Bobby Lee Hag, the Hag family.
Right.
And Jerry Randall is having a hell of a time trying to keep up with Jerry Rushing and can't do it. So it's really kind of cool. But yes, all this came from their life, and they pretty much never get any credit. And that's why I did a book, and that's the first thing I teach here, because that's how all this got started. Jerry and Johnny were on probation. They had to use bows and arrows. They couldn't carry shotguns. So, I mean, basically all this was taken from their life. The boar's nest, the bows and arrows on probation, Uncle Jesse having the finest whiskey, Uncle Whirly, Delane being Daisy. In fact, Delane's handle name in those days in Monroe was Dixie. Well, that's where the Jeep came from. So all this just evolved like that. And Jerry's runner was a 1958 Chrysler 300D with a 392 Hemi in it. And he called it Traveler. It was white. And we all know General Robert E. Lee's horse's name was Traveler.
Yep, during the Civil War.
Yeah, so we take Traveler, the hero car, and switch it to General Lee, and take two brothers and switch it to cousins. So yeah, all of this happened like that and evolved from that family. So it's pretty wild, and it's a tale that really, it was actually in a 1981 National Enquirer. I think January 19th of 81, it was in the National Enquirer. And who says everything in the Enquirer is lies? That's 125% honest truth. I've been there. I've visited it. I've got stuff, memorabilia from his actual little western town that he had with the boar's nest and everything. And actually Randy Travis actually got his start on Jerry's little stage. They used to have little fairs and little parties and everything out there, and his name was actually Randy Trevors back then. And Jerry said, he says, I even had a still in his granddaddy's backyard. But yeah, just the amount of stuff Jerry knew and everything, and seeing what he had seen, and had one movie and a huge show after him. I mean, it's pretty incredible from a little guy down in Monroe, North Carolina, and it's on the outskirts of Charlotte. So yeah, like I said, all this is real history. So that's why it always intrigued me, because it's not just some fictitious thing made up like, Knight Rider or A-Team or what have you. I mean, this all really happened. So it's a pretty neat thing.
Well, let's give everybody the name of your two books if they're looking to order any of those, and how they can get them.
Well, you can come here to the museum and get them, or you can go on Amazon, everybody's favorite place, and just type in The Roads Back to Early Hazard and A Moonrunner's Tale from Grit to Gold, How the Dukes Were Born. You can find it all on there, or you can go a third way is to my website, dukesofhazzard01.com, and get them right off of that. It'll lead you right to Amazon to do that.
We're coming up on 47 years since the Dukes of Hazzard premiered, January 26th.
79, yep.
Can you believe that?
Well, you know what you ought to do? Come here. What day is January 26th? I don't have a calendar in front of me. Bring Pops down.
Hey, John, I totally appreciate the time you gave me today. I thought I knew a lot about the Dukes of Hazzard. I know nothing now.
If you ever just want to jaw at me, you don't have to interview. Just, hey, I saw this in an episode. You've got my number now.
And that, my friends, is Jon Holland, keeper of the flame, guardian of the General Lee, and the man making sure that Hazzard County never fades into that rear view mirror. Whether you grew up watching Bo and Luke jump creek beds every Friday night, or you discover the Duke boys later in life, there is something special about what Jon's doing down there in Williamsburg, Virginia. He is preserving a piece of American television history, nostalgia, a simpler time when the good guys wore denim and the bad guys wore white suits. I just want to thank Jon for his time, his passion, and for keeping those doors open or welded shut, whatever, so that fans, young and old, can step back into Hazzard County whenever they need to. No matter how many shows come and go, no matter what's streaming or trending, when it comes to pure, good, high-octane fun, the Dukes of Hazzard will always remain 01 in my heart. I'm Joe Augustine with Gen X Marks the Spot podcast.